Hi, I am Kris.
And I'm Christian.
And I am from GeekChic Promotions, here doing Nerd Rage Weekend Rager. And my special guest this weekend is Christian Gossett. Now, Christian and I, cheers by the way, are working on something together that we kind of wanted to talk about and share with everyone. So first of all though, before we get to that, I would like to ask Christian a little bit about himself, and so everyone else can get to know him like I know him. So go ahead and tell us your history with comics and in the entertainment business.
Right on. The first claim to fame was definitely in my early 20s. I was living in the Bay Area and I was doing Star Wars comics for Dark Horse. And a bunch of the designs I did were controversial. Lucasfilm Licensing was like, what are you doing with these lightsabers? And I said, well, I'm just making them look cool. You guys said I had to make them look cool. And they said, yeah, but double-bladed and curved handles, we don't like it. And so I said, well, okay, but I'm in my early 20s, right? So I'm like, I don't care what you think. I don't care. If George Lucas doesn't like them, that's another story. So can we show them to George? Because, in your early 20s, I don't care about George Lucas' schedule. He has time for my art. He has time for my drawings.
If only we were in our 20s again, but with the knowledge we have now.
That's it. That's it, right? Just that total tenacity.
Yep.
They showed the drawings to George. George said, yeah, I love these lightsabers. And so they ended up being, in fact, when Disney bought Star Wars and got rid of all the expanded universe stuff, my lightsaber designs survived that leap. They actually are still still canon.
That's fantastic.
That's the first thing. And then I went on to do a graphic novel series called The Red Star, which I'm very proud of. And
which I forgot to have right in front of me because I was going to hold it up and show everybody.
We have people for that.
We do have people for that.
There
so,
she is.
We will get that and bring it right over.
Sweet young intern is going to come over here. Thank you, young intern.
Thank you. Is it backwards?
The Red Star. There it is.
Now
yes.
But that's okay. So this is it, guys, and you can see this. And I opened it to text, so that was perfect.
It's okay. It was cool, like Russian text.
Yes. See, so
tanks. Look at those tanks.
Beautiful artwork here, guys.
Flying battleships.
And I also remember I worked at Image when this came out, and I remember it being like, honestly, it was just the talk of everything. It was like
good
literally
times.
the artwork was spectacular. It was beautiful, and no one could stop talking about this book.
3 Eisner nominations.
Yes, indeed.
So yeah, it was a good time.
So with the Red Star now, first you were at Star Wars doing your thing and making a name for yourself, and then with Red Star, now tell me how that path went.
Red Star was, I went to work in the video game industry, and I was working on games for the PlayStation 1, and I was like, you know what, wouldn't it be cool if comic books had 3D models in them? Like, why can't you just build cool Gotham cities? And you do a story, you draw Batman, but you put Batman in this really cool Gotham city. You can light it better, you can do these crazy camera angles. Of course, you'd have to invest up front. It would be a little bit of work at the top, a little diligence to make this Gotham City or this Metropolis or, the Strata Fortress for the those shield guys. But if you did, it'd be really cool. So I go to Dark Horse, I'm like, we should do a Star Wars book, and we'll do it with these 3D models. We'll build the spaceships. It'll be so awesome. And they're like, 3D? Are they gonna have to wear like the glasses? I was like, oh man. I was like, so I had this comic book industry, been doing the same thing for a long time. Ink to paper, pencil to paper, everything's cool. And now here I come along, I'm like, okay, look, computers,
Let's
man.
shake it up.
Your comic books need computers. Computers. So they were like, that sounds cool. And so I pitched them, I showed them Red Star. But Star Wars was like, they didn't want to do it. So I pitched them this property, this IP, that we could do some 3D models in. And they were like, we don't want to pay for the modeling. I was like, well, you got to kind of pay for the modeling. This guy, another person, they're like, yeah, but penciler, inker, writer, color, that's who paid for it. And then, now you're going to want to add another guy, and he's going to be the most expensive one. No, can't do it. So I had to go to Image, and the wonderful, great, fantastic Larry Marder said, I love this idea. Do it. Well, here's how Image Central works. It's fantastic. Jim Valentino gave us the cover of Diamond Previews, and we were off and running. Had great sales. Everybody was buying us dinner. It was fantastic times. Hey, you guys do that new book with the computers. Do you have to draw anything? Do you just push a bunch of buttons?
Well, I remember, by the way, when Will Spertasio was telling me about when they first started computer coloring, how literally it would take like the entire day to render like
Oh
a
my
page.
gosh.
It was just like all these computers just sitting there, and they'd like do their thing and then hit the enter button and just have to wait. Just wait for hours to
Haberlin.
render everything and to load and to like, you know, yeah. And Haberlin too, yeah.
Haberlin was
exactly.
awesome. Partasio, they were doing some crazy. Who was that other guy? Steve Olaf.
I've heard his name. I
Oli
don't know him,
Optics,
though. But it was
man.
like hi-fi coloring, which is still around because we still do stuff with them. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, all of them were just, you know, pretty much cutting edge. And it was like the technology couldn't catch up with them.
Yeah.
Like all these great ideas that were happening, like, man, it was almost like now we have it. Like if we can think of it, we can do it. But back then it's like we were thinking of it and it wasn't moving quickly enough.
Yeah.
So, you know, which was, yeah. But here we are now anyway.
So that was the Red Star. It went on. We did a video game. It's still available on the PS Network and the Xbox Network. Still available. It's a really cool retro bullet game for those of you who might have liked Metal Slug or some of that old stuff. And got great reviews and still for sale. We had feature deals at Universal and Warner's. We're being developed for television right now. So it's been a really heck of a ride. It's taken me all over the world and introduced me to Peter Jackson and his crew, and I worked with them on Peter Jackson's King Kong, which was a blast.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride.
All right, so now do you want to explain to everyone how we met?
We met. This is really funny, actually. So I'm on Facebook, and I know Marcus Perry. And
We've mentioned Marcus often on
yes,
this show.
the Marcus Perry, the Marcus Perry, and so I'm at Anaheim. I'm at WonderCon, and I see my friend Ruth Ann. Now Ruth Ann and I,
Which
you guys,
also Geek Chic, you all know Ruth Ann.
you all know Ruth Ann. Well, Ruth Ann and I have this wonderful little ritual. We sometimes do and sometimes don't. It's very inconsistent, unpredictable. We never know if it's going to happen or not, but it's always enjoyable if it does. And so she'll see me, and we'll be all. And all of a sudden there's alcohol, and we're just drinking and laughing and having a great old
Everybody
time.
knows Ruth Ann. It's just like, sounds about right.
It's all, yup. And so I'm walking along, and I can't get a table. WonderCon is slammed. I'm trying to eat. I'm starving. I waited too long for lunch, and I can't sit down. And I hear Ruth Ann, Gossett! And I'm like, oh, good, Ruth Ann. There'll be alcohol and laughter. I sit down. She's like, this is my friend, Chris. And I'm like, okay, hi, stranger. So hungry, can't meet new people. So hungry, no bandwidth for meeting new people. I'm kind of a jerk at first. Not really.
I could tell my version after this.
Okay,
It's
good,
fine.
good. Yes, please do. And then Ruth Ann describes. She said, "Oh, this is Marcus Perry's. Her boyfriend's Marcus Perry." And I'm all, "Are you Kristen Simon?" Thanks to
Which
Facebook.
is hilarious, by the way, because, you know, so my version of that was almost essentially the same thing, which is we're at WonderCon, we're hanging out, we were there all day, which is why we had such a great seat, by the way, just drinking and talking and seeing people. And so she was like, oh, she's like, there's Chris Gossett. And so she calls you over, because I know who you were, like, whatever, and comes over, and so she introduces us. I was like, yeah, I know who you were, you know, but we've never officially met.
Right.
And then when you went, you're Christian Simon, and it was so funny to me because we'd been friends on Facebook
For so long.
years.
For so long.
Years. Like, it was, you know, I knew you and you knew
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
but we just never ever met, which was kind of
Totally.
hilarious. Yeah, and then all of a sudden it just became a flurry of talking, and yeah.
It was
and
so great to be
here we
introduced
are.
because
yeah.
I had thought about it before. There've been times, you know, you're on Facebook, you're like, oh, there's someone I've never spoken to. I should wave or something.
Yeah, I should do something,
But you don't
yeah.
want to make it weird. You're like, I can't just do that
when you're in
spontaneously.
the industry is so small that you
Yeah.
cross paths so often with people, but if you've never actually spoken with them, like
That's
you're friends
right.
on Facebook, you know each other, you know their work, they know you, everything's weird, and then all of a sudden, like, you meet 10 years later, and you're
Yeah.
just like, shouldn't we already know each other at this point? Yeah, which, that was it. So we can thank Ruth Ann for that.
It was a great time too. It was like, wow, this is so cool. And,
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
So now let's talk about this project that we're working on.
Yes.
Okay, so we talked about it a little bit last week, and so we mentioned it. It's called Con Life. And if you guys are following us, then you know that the social media is set up. You can follow This Is Con Life on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and there's a website set up and everything. So what I would like to talk about first is how we came up with this idea. Now, when Chris and I got together with Ruth Ann and our friend Daniel Radford, who you guys might know is a stand-up comedian. She also does a podcast called Tights and Fights. and she's a host often with Skybound on Gamma Ray, just hosting panels and stuff like that. So Kris and I had corresponded, said, oh, we should go get a drink like when everything is over at San Diego. We'd met up a couple times at San Diego Comic-Con and said, you know, we should do something. So texted one Sunday when everything was said and done, and late, I think it was like 10 o'clock at night, when we finally decided, like, let's get together.
That's right. You guys had to clean up the booth.
We had to clean up the booth, and then I had to go out to dinner with a client.
I was out fighting crime.
Yes. And so Ruth Ann and I met up with Kris, and Danielle just happened to be sitting in the bar that we went to, and so we invited her to join us. Like,
That's right.
None of us knew each other, by the way. Well, I mean, we knew each other, but we didn't know Danielle. Danielle, it was just one of those moments where it's like Sunday night, everything's dead. Come join us. And she's like, okay. So from that point on now, I give it to you.
We ate at the Hilton Bayfront.
Mm-hmm.
We sat down to eat. We're the last people there. They were cool. They were going to accommodate us, even though the con is Sunday night, so it's pretty darn late. And we sat down, and they treated us great, and we just having a wonderful time. It was just the kind of thing that happens at San Diego.
Yes. Especially,
and cons as well. But I'm partial to San Diego. It was my first con. I met Dave Stevens, rest his soul, back there in like 1988, 1889, back before there was a San Diego Convention Center, and talked to him about Rocketeer. Rocketeer had just gotten the deal.
Which, by the way, I just found my t-shirt for the Dead Dog Party. I just found it and I showed it to Ruth Ann that I had that I got for the after he died.
Yeah, the memorial.
Yeah,
you were
memorial.
at that Dead Dog
the
Party.
Bulldog Party.
I was there too.
I know.
That was when yes, I got
and
one.
we didn't know each other.
We didn't know each other. Man.
Yeah.
So
Which
San Diego
plays into this story. So.
It does. There's lots of great tradition from San Diego, and so the fun thing is you can always make a new tradition. San Diego is like however many people go now. What 200,000 people? I guarantee you, there's like with all the little cliques. There's wonderful stories, wonderful traditions about that show and other shows. And we were having one that night. We were kind of like, this is having such a wonderful time. Let's tell these stories. And Christian Simon, which is still hilarious and wonderful. And so you end up talking about people that you both know. You end up talking about hangovers you've had. You end up talking about books you've made and things you almost did and wonderful places that you didn't realize you're going to end up in. And we were like, this is con life. This is con life. It's something that's special. It's something that isn't going to be around forever. Nothing lasts forever, but we are in it, and we happen to be around for its transition from just exclusively people getting together to talk about their comic books and their favorite artists. And this Continental Hotel booze is finally kicking in.
And I think what kind of was the exciting part is that it was Danielle's first San Diego Comic-Con.
It was her first Comic-Con.
It was her first
and
Comic-Con.
And so we start reminiscing about our first Comic-Con.
Yes, and you guys, like, my first Comic-Con is not comparable, because at my first Comic-Con is where I hung out with Frank Miller and where I hung out with just about everybody you could think of, Sergio Aragonés and like a bunch of legends.
It. You were crushing it.
You have to keep in mind though, like my first San Diego Comic-Con, I was working at Image and I was editing a whole slew of books at the time.
Wow.
And so I was pretty much at the side of Jim Valentino, who, obviously is the Image partner. And so, like, I was manning the booth, but also I was going to all the parties that they get invited to. And so, honestly, I was a hanger-on, but, whatever, who cares?
No, you weren't. You were an editor.
Yeah,
Editors
but
never hang around.
so brand new, such a newbie. And of
you
course,
felt like a hanger-on.
And he wanted to introduce me to people. Like, it was very much, he felt pressure. Like you've never been here before. Like, we need to make it spectacular.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so, like, I don't have any photos. Like, I do have photos, but, like, I don't have a photo of me first meeting Frank Miller.
Right.
Like things like that. So you tell the story.
Yeah.
You do. You tell it because it's funny and it's hilarious and, it's a good memory to have. And now that, it's been 15 years or something like that I've been going, things change and you see it happen over a course of time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get worse. It just is. It's just different. So when we talk about con life, we talk about the experiences you have outside of the con itself, like with people, the relationships you make, and you discover that professionals in the industry usually want to go to conventions because they get to see the friends that they've made who don't live in their area. So you can see people that, like, friends you've made all over the world.
Yep.
Because my first book that I worked on, my writer was from Australia, and my artist was from Argentina. And at that first Comic-Con, they were both there.
Wow.
And it was incredible because you never see these people face to face unless like a company pays for you all to be there and do a signing or something like that. And so it was that way with almost everyone I'd met. It was just like they all live all over the United States. And cons are where you go to like reconnect with them and hang out and have a moment, you know?
That's another part of con life that's very exciting for me, us doing this, because people want to know how the books happen.
Yes.
And there's so much amazing stuff that goes into making the books happen that you don't hear about, that have nothing to do with the stars that you love who are writing it and drawing it and painting it, right?
Right, exactly.
Your first book, you've got people on different continents.
Yep.
Where, okay,
different time zones.
So you're going to figure out time zones. You're going to figure out FedEx rates.
Yep, I had it listed on the bottom of my computer. I had the different time zones. I had an app that just like let me see what time it was when.
Yeah.
So I was working out of Chicago, dealing with Image, who was in LA.
Yeah.
And then working with a writer who was in Australia a day
Right.
ahead of me, and then Argentina, which was I think an hour off from where I was. But like, yeah, it was crazy. It was nuts, and yet it worked beautifully.
Insane.
But like. And here's the thing that's crazy is that when you hang out with these people like at a bar, you realize like their next book is born from sitting at a bar having a drink, doodling on a napkin. And like true story.
Exactly.
Yes, and there's so many instances of that where like you're at a party and you bump into someone that you've admired that you don't know, and you introduce yourself and you just start talking, and then all of a sudden you're doing a book together.
Oh my
like,
gosh.
It's crazy.
I think Neil Gaiman still has a like one of those things, restraining orders. I think he has a restraining order, which is valid. It's okay, Neil. It's all good, baby. I'm gonna hurt you, but you're right. It's cool.
So I think like, and honestly, that's how Con Life came to be.
Yes.
Con Life is another story about Con Life, how we're all like walking down a pier, like after having a drink,
Yep.
and discussing how we can bring to life like these stories.
Yeah, and give people give people a place where they can tell
A
theirs.
place where they can tell their stories.
Because there's so many. You know you have them.
Yes.
You have them. You're thinking
You
about them right
all
now.
have a concert.
You're all,
Anyone who's been
them
to a
stories is
convention.
boring. They should hear my stories.
And
That's right.
And
We feel that way
like
too.
everyone wants to hear them, because when we tell our story, there's like 10 of you that are going to be watching this who have your own story that you want to tell, that you want to chime in with, and just be like, this is the first time I met so-and-so, you know, and it was amazing. And like, I had a really great experience, or I had a really bad experience, or I just had a plain weird experience, which that happens. So that's why we want to do Con Life. And so with that, what are we going to be doing with Con Life?
Well, I don't know how much we want to give up about
You don't have to give anything up that you don't want to give
I
up.
want to be pretty secretive about it, Chris. There's some secrets in there. I don't know if I want to give up yet.
Okay.
All right. Has
All
to
right.
do with it. I will say, because you know we haven't talked to everybody we need to talk to, but there is a gathering. There's a gathering of the elite, like the Illuminati of the comics industry gets together.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
And this story, the first story we'll be doing, has to do with that gathering. Stories from that gathering.
I
So
like it.
That's what I'm gonna say.
All right. So you're going to say that, and what I'm going to say is that you guys over the next few months, let's just say, is that, you know, if you feel like sharing your Con Life stories, you should definitely find This Is Con Life on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and share your stories with us. Like, honestly, use the hashtag This Is Con Life. Use the plain hashtag Con Life. And because be interactive with us, like share it with us, because you know we think it's an amazing thing that hasn't yet been done, that like people are talking about it but no one's putting it down. And I just and this is just part one, by the way, of this interview series that we're going to be doing on Con Life. We have a part 2 coming that Ruth Ann's going to be doing with Danielle, who's the other person that you've heard about. So and they'll be, you know, discussing their roles in this and what they're doing. So right now, what are our roles? What are we doing?
First, I'd like to talk about the intern's role. Rum, intern.
Okay.
So, Con Life.
This is fantastic.
It's over there.
It's over there.
So,
I
the rum.
put it in the
I
cabinet.
put it back foolishly,
Yes, I put it
thinking,
back.
oh, I'll just have one.
Lies.
Well done, intern. I'm sorry. Please, what were you? What were
No,
you?
I said, what are our roles in this? Like, what are we doing here? So that just so we know, like,
Gosh.
because Chris here is not just an artist and a writer. What else do you do? Like, you didn't even go into, like, you know, the
It's
film
so true. I
making
did
and
direct
stuff.
one of the most like notorious fan films
That's a
ever.
good word for that.
Notorious. And so there's that whole story. But again, it was born at a convention. It was in fact, I remember seeing Chris Evans. I saw Captain America at San Diego Comic-Con at a screening. Chris Evans comes out. Again, this is still, the Marvel Universe is super young, right? Chris Evans is there on stage hoping that, because he'd been through the Fantastic Four thing, right? He's hoping that this one works out. And he was so sincere and so awesome. He totally lit the room up. We're all like, I love him. And the movie was awesome, and of course the rest is history. But again, so meet that guy, and me and that dude end up making this crazy fan film that's notorious, which I won't even name it by name because it's that notorious.
But if you
it's like
Google it,
Princess
you can
Black
find
album.
it.
You know, it's like that kind of thing. Took down Star Trek fan films, which I had no intention of doing. I'm sorry, sorry, Star Trek fan film people.
I love that.
It wasn't
You're
my
going to apologize for it here.
I'm totally apologizing for it. Con Life. Thank you,
Thank
intern.
you.
Well done, intern. Well done. And you too, handsome young man, helping her out. We have a whole team here doing Con Life.
Yes.
Con Life is a whole movement, and we want you to be a part of it.
Yes.
Please, right now you're saying to yourself, oh, my stories aren't that interesting. I assure you, don't even do that. Contact us, send your story, send some fragment of it, and get it out there.
Yes.
It's going to be a part of this. There's going to be anthologies. There's going to be
See?
events.
You're already talking about it.
I know. It's going to be stuff. It's going to be really cool stuff.
So we have a whole 3-pronged plan here for Con Life, and it's going to be really cool. So even if you don't read comics, well, there's going to be other stuff for you to see. And there's going to be other stuff for you to participate in if you so choose. And I think it's going to be really fun and really exciting. And even if you can't make it to cons or you don't have a Con Life story, you can still like read about it or watch it, and you can just see things that are just like, you know, live vicariously, because I think that it's one of the things that fans are really going to enjoy is hearing stories. And it's not just stories from the fans, it's the pro stories. The pro stories of pros meeting other pros that they look up to, or meeting someone that changed their life through one project, or you know, something that was super significant, which, you know, or something that everyone hopes will happen to them.
For example,
you know?
on the road to Comic-Con, like for me, the 5 South between LA and San Diego is a magical dimensional portal. And one of the reasons I think that is because, you know, they have a lot of people, you know, going to the con. And again, this is just San Diego, and Con Life is about all cons. I want to keep going back to that. I keep going back to San Diego because, you know, Alzheimer's is settling in. And I just keep going, San Diego! Okay, Grandpa, San Diego, we know. I'm made of cheese! Shut up, Grandpa. Seriously though, but here's one such story that Chris was describing. I don't know how many people know this story, but Frank Miller and one other person were in a car, you know, stuck in traffic, going down from LA to San Diego, and from that car trip was born Wolverine as the samurai. The whole Japanese connection, all the Elektra stuff.
Really?
Like, yeah, it's all born from this drive to Comic-Con.
Wow.
And that's one of those pro stories that is just amazing.
That's what we want to hear about.
Yeah.
Like that's what you guys want to hear about, I'm sure.
And I love hearing about the people that, you know, no con anywhere in the world is long enough for us to meet everybody we would want to meet at that Comic-Con.
Absolutely.
But through Con Life, we're going to be able to connect with more and more of these people.
Yes.
And that's something that's really exciting for me.
Same here.
Con Life is about connection. It's about meeting people you never thought you'd meet. And we want to help facilitate that even more for you guys.
Absolutely. We want you guys to be a part of this legacy that we're trying to create, where these stories aren't forgotten and that they're told and that they can live on. So, you know, honestly, I hope that all of you out there, you know, think it's a great idea, and that I hope you'll support it. And please stay tuned for next week's version of this, which is Ruth Ann Thompson, my other half of GeekChic. Yes, with Danielle Radford, who is going to be part of this as well. And for further information and to pique your guys' interest. So.
And let us know what you think.
Yeah, let us know what you think. Absolutely. You can find us everywhere across the channels. So thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
It's so great to be here. Are you kidding me? I'm like, when am I gonna be on Nerd Rage? So
sure.
thank you. I totally was. I heard there was rum.
Yeah, there is. There
So.
was rum. There is rum. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.